On Voice of America, I'm Millar Sega in Washington. Well, Iraqi forces have now recaptured the northern city of Mosul, retaking the old city that has been under Islamic State control for 3 years. But that was last week. Now, Iraqi officials say the challenge is how to close the refugee camps that have been home to so many who fled to escape the violence. Now, about 1 million people have been displaced by the 9-month conflict. Ali Javan Mardi of VOA's Persian service is covering the story for us. Our Michael Lippin narrates.
About 4,000 people live in this displaced persons camp in Baharka, close to Erbil, the capital of northern Iraq's Kurdistan region. It is one of more than a dozen camps in the area for people who fled the fighting in the northern Iraqi city of Mosul. Some of those at Baharka are in no hurry to go back. Nadia Ali, a 25-year-old mother of 4 children, lost her husband in the Mosul conflict.
There's no house for me there. I prefer living in these conditions to returning to a city that is not safe.
Many here lost relatives and saw their homes destroyed in the 9 months it took Baghdad to oust Islamic State militants from Mosul. The children are too young to understand. They just want to go home. But the adults say they are not ready to return to a city lacking in security, basic services, and food.
The Iraqi Prime Minister says, come back, come back. If I don't have money, how can I come back? With only my clothes?
This Sunni Arab man is so angry at how Iraq's Shiite-led government is handling the situation that he says he doesn't consider himself to be an Iraqi. Sentiments like that could make it difficult for Baghdad to achieve the goal of clearing all the camps by the end of this year.
So what happens next to these Iraqi families? And have we heard the last of Islamic State? Well, to help us out with those questions and more, I'm joined here in Washington by VOA Kurdish Service reporter Khalid Fatah, along with frequent contributor, national security correspondent Jeff Seldin. I thank you both for joining us. Khalid, the first question goes to you. Obviously, a lot of refugees very reluctant to leave the relative safety of these camps. What would it take to bring them back home?
Well, for the people, what it takes to take them back, they are looking forward to have a security, safety, clean water. They looking for the job, as we see it in the report. Also, the main issue is who is gonna, or the question is who is going to provide this security and safety for these people. Right. The Iraqi government, the Shia-led Iraqi government, and what's happened in Mosul 2 years ago before the ISIS attack, I believe it was a result of the Baghdad's policy that Sunni people led or followed or tracked with some kind of extremist ideology. Right. So this is one of the other thing is there is a big challenge is facing the Iraqi government. Plus, what's the people needs? There is a generation born under ISIS control. They educated with the ISIS and the extremist ideology. They may have the Iraqi government has to deal with this one before building walls. Right. Now, Jeff, Iraqi government obviously saying that they've won a victory against Islamic State. First of all, is that true? And do militants still pose a threat to those refugees in some of those camps who may be coming back?
Well, there definitely was a victory for the Iraqi army. It was a hard-fought battle to retake Mosul from the Islamic State militants and the fighters, some of whom are still positioned in the city. So while the main battle is over and you know, Iraq has declared victory, and not only in Mosul, but over the physical state, the caliphate as declared by the Islamic State, the fight is not over. And you hear that from both American officials and Iraqi officials. There are 2 problems that they're facing right now, or actually 3. One, they still have to do a lot of back clearing in Mosul. There are pockets where, even though they've been clearing them out, there are still some pockets where sleeper cells may be hiding, where Islamic State fighters may be holding out still or waiting for an opportunity to strike. 2, the forces that had to retake Mosul are exhausted. The Counterterrorism Service, the CTS, which has been the spearhead of the Iraqi effort in many of its battles against Islamic State, suffered 40% casualties. They're going to have to replenish their forces. They're going to have to rest and retrain before they can go on to the next target. And the final part is that there are still areas in Iraq which is under the control of Islamic State, including Hawija, including parts of Western Anbar province in the deserts, and also Al-Qaim, which is right next to the Syria border. And the Iraqi government so far hasn't given a real indication of where it's going to go next, where the campaign heads next.
This battle far from over, obviously. But Khalid, you've seen some of the video of the rubble in western Mosul. I mean, what kind of a challenge is that going to be to rebuild that by the end of the year, as the Iraqi government wants to do?
Well, by the end of the year, it's kind of hard. We heard from the Iraqi government they will defeat ISIS and repel them from Mosul by the end of 2016. We were at the mid of June when they declared the victory. I think Iraqi government doesn't have that capability to rebuild Mosul city, the second largest city in Iraq, after 9 months of the military operation, bombing, hard fighting in the town. It's especially in the old town, right, which is not easy to rebuild it. Plus, Iraqi government doesn't have a financial capability to rebuild the city.
Right. And Jeff, last week we were talking about this very same issue, and you suggested that this is a big kind of humiliating loss for Islamic State. But as you say, there's still a lot of sleeper cells out there. What kind of a danger do they pose for Iraq, for those people, especially up in the north, and Syria? Do they remain a threat to that region?
U.S. officials, intelligence officials, military officials are very clear. Islamic State remains a threat, will remain a threat for many years. Just the other day, the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, Mike Pompeo, was speaking at a forum, and he said the efforts to destroy and now annihilate Islamic State in Iraq had reduced Islamic State's total end strength by about 50%. What does that mean? Right. It means that they still have a significant amount of firepower, a significant number of fighters, talking possibly 10,000, maybe more, still partly in Iraq and many in Syria. And there's also the concern that they are going to spread. One of the things that almost shocked some military officials was the way Islamic State carried out these battles to defend Mosul and still Raqqa, where they operated like a conventional army. That was never really their strength. Their strength is in being an insurgency and being a terrorist group and using those types of tactics. And now they're forced to revert to that, and they don't need the same type of experience and they don't need the same type of firepower that they would need to take on the Iraqi army or other forces head on.
Khalid, part of the problem, I think, for the Iraqi government is you have a country that has so many religious factions to deal with. How effective is a Shia government going to be in maintaining control, let's say, in a Sunni community or perhaps even a Kurdish community?
Well, unfortunately, the Iraqi government, it's built on base of the sectarian base. And plus, it's being forced or influenced by the Iranian government. This is create an Iraqi government doesn't have, actually, it's lack of making decision, a national decision about their own country or their own people. Right. They are going back to Tehran to receive or to get approved for any decision. And what's going on in Iraq and Syria is the Sunni-Shia conflict. Iran is leading one side of it, and the Sunni countries leading the other side. And I don't think it's a decision Iraqi government can make that kind of decision to deal with the challenges that's facing in.
I'm out of time, but thanks to both of you gentlemen, this issue is going to continue for quite some time. So thank you for your coverage. My thanks to Khalid, Fatah, and Jeff Seldin. We're going to take a short break right now, but when we come back, Venezuela's government in crisis as the country's political opposition pressures President Nicolas Maduro to call off plans to change the country's constitution. This is The Correspondent on Voice of America.